Siomra
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first collecting issues of 2020, where this week we'll be taking a look at Lucifer Volume 1, the Infernal Comedy, collecting issues 1 to 6 of the Vertigo series by Dan Waters, Max Fiumara, Sebastian Fiumara, and colours by Dave McCaig, with story by Neil Gaiman.
And
started in the year 2018. And
issue 1 of The Dreaming.
Issue 1 of The Dreaming, which I forgot. What a complicated intro for 2020, Michael.
Ben, so complex.
Such complexity.
The most complex creative team we've ever looked at here on creating issues. Is that what this is called?
This is, it's creating issues. That's definitely correct. Professionalism abounds. Michael,
yes,
this was my pick.
It was.
We took a go with this one. This is very, well, to me, I quite enjoyed it, but I don't know what you thought of it, Michael. What did you think of it?
Well, we won't spend our load quite yet, Ben. I'll tell you what I thought of it later.
All right, fair enough. I decided to pick this one up, Michael, because two great Sandman fans are we, and this was part of Vertigo's kind of relaunch of the Sandman universe, an attempt to kind of cash in on the last dregs of Neil Gaiman's amazing property, Sandman. One of the interesting things about this collection, Michael, is that we get the kind of first mini issue that you and I picked up a couple of months ago, where they gave us little vignettes from each new series that would be launching in the Vertigo universe. And this is no different, because one of those little vignettes is like a little prelude.
And let me tell you, Ben, that's my first issue with this comic book collection. Because I picked this up and I thought to myself, right, Ben, I know the world of The Dreaming.
Yes.
I've read the entirety of Sandman.
Yes.
Not most of the ancillary stuff that has come out since the end of Sandman and now.
Who needs it?
Haven't read most of that. You know, I know who people are.
Yeah.
I know about the fella whose head's a pumpkin.
You're caught up.
Yeah.
Merv the pumpkin.
I know about Merv the pumpkin. I know about Matthew. I know about Cain and Abel.
Matthew's great.
I know about the Ravens.
Yes, the librarian, Lucius.
I know the characters.
He's a man who knows his way around the Vertigo verse.
Yeah, I know that Dream is now Daniel, not Morpheus,
which is a waste.
But anyway, look, I know what I'm doing.
He knows what he's about. He knows what he's about.
But when I picked this up, I thought to myself, right, I'm going to pick this up, Ben, and I'm going to look at this as if I don't know any of that stuff. I'm a fan of Tom Ellis's TV show Lucifer.
Oh no.
And I'll pick this up and I'll have a look at it. Or just I'm a fan of the devil in general. You know, I enjoy a black mass, a sacrifice, an upside down cross.
That's how you got me, Michael.
Yeah.
You had a little black mass, and then all of a sudden, right there in the middle of the pentagram, with little old Ben
summoned forth. I was trying to summon forth the lady who plays Mazakin in the TV show.
Didn't work.
You bloody popped out.
Yeah, Benzabub.
The devil and his tricks. But anyway...
Very rambly.
Yeah. Well, where was I going? This first issue is so confusing.
Yeah, it's rubbish.
If you've just picked this up, this is a terrible idea to put this in here.
Rubbish.
Now, what some other comic publishers might do is edit that first issue to take out the other stuff.
That's what I would have done.
There's a whole thing about a crocodile king and two cursed girls.
Rubbish.
And there's Harry Potter and some sort of dominatrix.
Books of magic.
Yeah, and they're all, obviously, this issue of The Dreaming was to lead into all of these new comics. But if you're not a very familiar comic reader who's used to this type of event, what a terrible introduction.
Yeah, it was pretty poor.
And then you're going, where's Harry Potter and that dominatrix gone? Where's the man who's a crocodile? Why is he looking upside down through the water at those two girls? Who are they going to be?
What in heck's name is going on?
What in tarnation is going on? And none of those characters come back.
Yeah, no, it's no good.
Very confusing.
Very confusing. Yeah, look, I'd be honest, this isn't a great starter comic for anyone trying to get into the world of thing.
Now, let me tell you, Ben, especially because, do you remember we looked at a comic a few months ago, Transformers More Than Meets the Eye?
Yes.
And I said that people could accuse Transformers More Than Meets the Eye of being somewhat similar in that there's an initial issue which launches two things.
Yes.
And then you're reading it and you're going, what are all these Transformers things and what's going on and what's a spark? What is an Allspark? What's a Lunar 2 and all that stuff? And I said, trust the comic, Ben, it'll get there eventually.
And it did.
And this does exactly the same thing.
Yes, I think so.
But when you've already been destabilized by that first issue going, who's the crocodile man?
Who in heck's name is that?
Who's the crocodile man? What's he doing? Why is Harry Potter in this?
Where's the bloody crocodile fella?
When you've already been destabilized, then the fact that this comic is supposed to be destabilizing I feel, that you're supposed to have a bit of confusion in this.
Yes, there's a rocked boat.
Yeah, you're along for the ride with the what the heck's going on here. But because you've been destabilised by that, and those characters never come back, I think that's borderline unforgivable.
Borderline unforgivable, Michael.
As a comic collection,
as a trade paperback, as collected issues.
Yes, as something that someone might pick up in a bookshop, an Eason.
Yes.
Unforgivable to introduce that crocodile man and those lesbians and who else was in it? Harry Potter. He was
Harry
there.
Potter and his dominatrix friend.
Yeah, unforgivable to introduce all of that and then have the bird say, "But anyway, look, I'm heading off. I'm sure you'll find out about that later."
Later, folks.
And then you don't.
You don't. No.
What happens to his dead crow friend?
Nothing.
Yeah,
Nothing. That never
So
resurfaces.
it's a framing device that clearly isn't a framing device, because it's actually a framing device for 4 or 5 separate comics.
I think it's a hype beast that's placed at the beginning of the thing.
So I have an issue with that, but otherwise...
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Well, Michael, I am...
Unforgivable!
I am also familiar with the various kind of spin-offs from the Sandman universe. In fact, Michael, I have read the original Lucifer comic book run in its entirety. I own the entire thing. No, not with Tom Ellis. That came much, much later, Michael. Originally, Mike Carey and Mike Dreinberg were given a series from Vertigo, and Mike Carey wrote to Neil Gaiman and asked which of the characters did he think would make an interesting kind of addition from his Sandman universe. Mm-hmm. And Neil Gaiman said he had always wanted to expand on his version of Lucifer, because it's very important to note that this Lucifer, in every facet, is Neil Gaiman's original idea. Yeah, him and the wonderful gentleman who did all the covers, Dave McKean. Dave McKean and Neil Gaiman sat down and said, if we were making Lucifer, what way would we bloody make him?
He'd be David Bowie.
And we're going to get into all that in a few minutes. But the original story was this grand narrative of the devil versus God, and really trying to make his own way in the universe. And it established a lot of the characteristics of Vertigo's Lucifer. He's a being of sheer will. Yeah. He doesn't lie, despite the fact that he's called the Prince of Lies. He takes great umbrage to that.
And one of the things I really enjoyed in this comic, Ben, was that every time the devil is telling a story with someone else telling their version of it, it's the same story, just they see it differently.
Yeah, this is one of the big things that happens.
You can't accuse him of lying.
No, they just see the story in a completely different fashion. They feel very wronged.
But both are true.
Every time they interact. Yeah, so, I mean, in terms of a spiritual successor to anything that Neil Gaiman writes, I think this book is very close to original Sandman kind of shenanigans and stories. There's a lot of things going on here, and a lot of new characters are introduced, and I think it's very interesting. One of my favorite things about Michael is that magic in this universe is very dirty. It's a very dirty, bloody, unpleasant thing.
Lots of death.
There's a lot of sacrifice involved in it. There's a lot of difficulty. Magic is not for everyone. No. This isn't your Zatanna pulling, like, saying a word backwards I've got real control. This is, you've got to give me your eyeballs, or you've got to give up on all your hopes and dreams to get this. And it's interesting.
You've got cancer now.
Yeah. Well, tumor. There's a lot of that going on, and I really like that dirty, grimy, difficult magic. It's a Constantine magic. It's a Sandman magic. It's the original Vertigo kind of magic, and that is what I've always liked about DC's, or more importantly, Vertigo's kind of magic. It's grimy and unpleasant, and it's unpredictable, and it's dangerous. But I also like the common sense element of their magic. For example, we have the Weird Sisters from Shakespeare's. But
there's only 2 of them.
Macbeth. There's only 2 of them. They're constantly searching for their 3. But at one point, they blind themselves to be more like Lord Lucifer. And he says, that was really stupid, because you can just do this. And he gives himself his eyeballs back.
And they're like, did he give himself his eyeballs back?
He didn't actually do that. And they become a bizarre kind of comic relief throughout
as they're trying to get their eyeballs back.
But there's a moment where they borrow an eye from a cat.
Yeah, gross.
And I love the bizarre logic of magic in this universe, where it's like, oh, we don't have eyes, so we can just borrow somebody else's eye, and that's magic. But again, it's sacrificial. The poor old cat gets a missing eye, and that's how it goes. So I really enjoyed that. I think there are a lot of influences in this. Dan Waters is a UK-based writer of comics. He's done quite a few things for DC. He's written a lot of their one-shots for Year of the Villain, which was last year. He's also writing House of Whispers, which is one of the companion series to this in the new Dreaming universe that Vertigo is putting together.
Is it the one about the Crocodile Man?
Yes, it is.
Is it the Crocodile Man one?
It is the one about the Crocodile Man. And then, more importantly than that, he's done a lot of work for Image Comics. He's written 2 series, one called Limbo and the other called Coffin Bound, and they're very similar to the opening premise of these 6 issues.
Grimy evil magic.
People are trapped in places they don't want to be trapped in anymore. I mean, you can guess it from the title Limbo.
Yeah,
and Coffin Bound is very similar. It's about a
coffin.
Yeah, it's about an unusual young lady trapped in a kind of post-apocalyptic bubble. And it's very interesting. So this seems to be Dan Waters' kind of modus operandi.
He feels he's trapped in a bubble.
Yeah, he feels he's trapped in a bubble, a little British bubble, and he wants to get out. So look, we're introduced to a lot of different things. Lucifer is obviously our primary antagonist, and as you so keenly put it, Michael, David Bowie.
He's bloody David Bowie.
David Bowie. So the huge influence on Neil Gaiman and Dave McKean, which they very much admitted in their wonderful collection called Dust Covers. I don't know if you've ever read it. No. It's all of the covers to the Sandman series, the original Sandman run.
Very
and
good.
Dave McKean breaks them all down because Dave McKean has a very unique art style, kind of post-punk, anarchic, object, mixed media kind of stuff. Really interesting guy. And he talks all about how him and Neil Gaiman came up with this David Bowie-esque thing. And never is it more clear in this that David Bowie is the clear influence of this. In fact, there's a very particular David Bowie persona that drives this. In the mid-1970s, David Bowie moved to Berlin. As he wanted to clean up his act. He was on drugs and all these kinds of things, and he said, okay, I'm going to move somewhere else that isn't Los Angeles, where I get...
I'm going to move somewhere else that isn't Los Angeles.
And then people said, David, you can't move to the moon. That's not possible. He goes, okay, Berlin. And he went off to Berlin. And he created a persona called the Thin White Duke.
He was dancing in the bloody streets.
And it's the exact costume that he wears in this, where it was a black waistcoat, black trousers, white shirt.
He's got a bit of a fag.
There's a very particular thing. David Bowie was asked to describe why he came up with this persona. And the quote that he gave was...
the devil made me do it.
He's a very Aryan, fascist type, a would-be romantic with absolutely no emotion at all, but who spouted a lot of neo-romance. Now, it's interesting, because I read that 2 days ago, Michael, in research for this podcast. That is a very good description of the kind of Lucifer we're dealing with in this particular series. No emotion at all. And it's one of the big changes from the original 2000 run on Lucifer. He's an almost sympathetic character in Mike Carey's run on the character, and Dan Waters has made him an almost irredeemable prick.
Because he's Lucifer, he's the devil,
it makes perfect sense. And oddly enough, I think it speaks to Dan Waters' skill as a writer. You're still kind of rooting for him throughout, but he's unashamedly a bastard. In this,
he doesn't look nothing like big, muscular, dark, sexy Tom Ellis.
No, Tom Ellis is a very different creature. I think, look, the Netflix universe, Lucifer, a great Lucifer character in his own right,
but not this Lucifer,
but not a Vertigo Lucifer in any kind of sense. The Netflix adaptation and originally ABC adaptation played very fast and loose with that character.
It became Disney.
It became a crime of the week. Procedural thing.
Ben, now having said all of that David Bowie stuff, what's Alan Moore doing on the cover there?
Yeah, it does look very like Alan Moore, isn't it? I think it's important to note this has nothing to do with Sebastian or Max Fiumara, who are the two primary artists here, or Dave McKeag. This is Jock, the famous cover artist for DC. I thought it looked like 13th Doctor Matt Smith. It looked a little bit like somebody had taken a Matt Smith reference picture.
Yeah, I can see a bit of Matt Smith there.
And pasted it over.
With a great big bushy beard.
It does look very like Alan Moore. I don't know what that's about.
Alan Moore, because when the devil is scraggly, he goes a bit scraggly.
Yes, he's very scraggly. He's ginger.
Yeah, he's very ginger, isn't he?
And it's interesting. Look, there are a lot of characters introduced here, and a lot of them are influenced by literature and famous traditional kind of literary tropes and things like that. And of course, Michael... That wets my whistle.
It does. Your whistle is soaked. I can see it.
There's a lot of characters. The primary
dripping.
The primary cast that we're dealing with here are Lucifer,
yeah,
Sycorax,
yeah,
Caliban,
yeah,
Stingy bloody Jack, Michael.
Jack, he's only Irish.
And then we have the Weird Sisters. So there's a lot of literary influences going through this. There are a couple of drop-ins from famous kind of cultural figures who are said to be in league with the devil.
William Blake.
We have bloody famous blues musician Robert
Pattinson.
Oh my God, I've forgotten his name. That's terrible.
I think he plays Robert Pattinson.
He doesn't. No, he doesn't.
You spin your wheels off. I'll find the page.
He's there. Oh my God, I can't believe I've forgotten this guy.
Just
famously, and leave it that. William Blake is there as well. And it's just a very interesting comic in that regard. I have to give massive props to Robert Johnson. Thank you. I have to give massive props to bring back the horror element of the Sandman universe, because towards the end of Mike Carey's run, it was all just very magical with no explanation. And in this, it really reminds me of the original Sandman, Preludes and Nocturnes.
Well, of course it does. Remember, if you go back, that was Sandman trapped in his snow globe and trying to get out, and now
exactly.
This is...
So there's a big thing.
And remember, we're full spoilers here, because you're supposed to have read this.
It's a bloody reading club.
This is Lucifer trapped in bloody a skull.
He's trapped in Sycorax's skull. Yeah. So Sycorax's physical form, her skull is left behind. For anyone who's a Shakespeare fan, Sycorax is the witch from The Tempest. William Shakespeare's final play. Caliban is kind of a mute savage, and the daughter or the son of Sycorax.
And it turns out
in this particular one, full spoilers,
the bloody devil,
bloody Lucifer and Sycorax getting it on.
Couldn't keep his old little horn in his trousers.
Sycorax is kind of a parallel for Hecate, the goddess of witches. She's known as the greatest of all witches, which makes a lot of sense if you go back and read that kind of thing. We also have some serious Gothic influence here. The American Gothic makes a huge influence. I think very much in the art style that Sebastian and Max Fiumara put together, two Italian brothers. That work together on this, which is really interesting, I thought, to have.
Have they done something we've reviewed before?
Almost certainly, but I can't remember what it is.
Okay.
They may have done an issue of Hawkeye at one point, I'm not sure.
I don't know.
But anyway, you're thinking of Fabio and Gabriel Ba.
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay, sorry, you're not.
Just the surname reminds me of something, but never mind.
Anyway, they've come up with a really Gothic, scraggly, kind of twisted, elongated style that's very much in the American Gothic tradition.
Especially in the kind of hotels and motels and byways of whatever the detective's name story
That's a very supernatural, kind of grim, dingy, supernatural thing. The Mask of the Red Death makes an appearance, which is a famous Edgar Allan Poe short story. We get to see Lucifer as kind of a red baron, which is a traditional depiction of Satan. And then more importantly, I think reading the story of John Decker, who's kind of our framing device for what's happening in the real world, while Lucifer, Sycorax are trapped in the skull of Sycorax. He is going through kind of a Victorian losing your mind, corruption from the inside thing.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a Lovecraft as well.
There are super influences there. So there's two particular influences there that I saw in John Decker's story, and that's The King in Yellow, which was a very twisted version of kind of a slowly losing your mind by reading the wrong book, kind of thing. And that's what happens to John Decker. He stumbles across the wrong thing and then slowly loses his mind as a result of that. And The Yellow Wallpaper, which is Creeping Madness. John Decker was kind of possessed by these bizarre dreams where a huge fleshy mass keeps communicating with him, and it turns out that that's Sycorax trying to get in touch with him from inside the skull.
It was Dr. Starr.
Okay, Fiumara. Yeah, he would have been they would have been the artist on Dr. Starr. You can actually see a direct parallel between those styles.
Yes, that makes sense.
Very clear once you've put that together. I really enjoyed that John Decker arc. John Decker is discarded, and by the end of the thing, they both step out of Sycorax's skull at the end, and they say, "Who's this?
Who's this guy?" No, she knew who he was.
Almost, not entirely. She wasn't entirely really sure. Care. He was familiar. I think that was an excellent way of setting up just what these characters do. They're so far beyond human trials. We think John Decker's going to be important in this story, and by the end of it, it's just like, no, he was just the messenger. He just needed him to smash the skull so we could get out, and that's all he was. He doesn't have any great significance, and I think that's a fascinating way to really set those characters up as other than human.
Well, it was a series of coincidences.
Yes, well, there was a lot of that going on as well, and I found that really interesting as we went along. I'm trying to see if there's anything else here that I really wanted to... Oh, of course, main antagonist, Michael.
Well, hold on a second. Did you see, and Ben, this is obviously purely coincidental because these things were written at the same time, there was certain parallels to the latest TV series of Watchmen.
Yeah.
Because we were following Lucifer, who has gone a bit mad and a bit isolated.
Pretty bonkers.
And he's in this weird situation which seems to be repeating itself. Very similar to Ozymandias' situation.
In his bizarre bubble.
So I was watching it and I was imagining the devil being played by Jeremy Irons.
Which would be quite interesting.
As he's going slowly,
I would watch the heck out of that.
As he's going slowly mad. But like I said, Ben, at the beginning there, when I had a bit of a rant,
yes,
if I had just started from that panel, I think I would have been much happier.
Yeah.
Because then it would have been clear to me that that was the tone we were setting up, this confusion and what is happening. And maybe I would have developed the trust in the writers and the artists that it was going somewhere. Because when it came around to it, I actually did really enjoy a lot of that.
Oh, thank God.
A lot of that kind of,
I was very
where is this fella and what's wrong with him and how's he going to get out and how did he end up there?
Mm.
But I didn't trust that was the mystery. Whereas when we saw Watchmen, I was like, this is great. How did he get there? What's he doing mystery there? But I didn't trust that because of that stupid-ass bloody introduction from The Dreaming, which introduced lots of characters who I knew.
Which I think is more of a poor move on Vertigo parts than Dan Waters' part.
Oh, yeah, it's
unfortunately, Dan Waters received quite a bit of backlash.
On that?
No, on the first 2 issues.
Okay.
Fans were just like, I don't get this.
Right.
And I don't... Either they're not really familiar with the Sandman style of storytelling, or they're not very familiar with Mike Carey's run. That has always been the setup of the Sandman universe. Your first couple of issues are very discombobulating. What the heck is this? What podcasting gold. Yeah. What internation's going on here? Oh, yeah, varmints. And then we slowly get our reveal peeled out. We work for that reveal, Michael. I have to say, I really enjoyed that. So, shall we do a...
No, I just have two more things to say about references. The whole Haley House thing.
Gately House, is
that what it's called? Gately House.
It's as in, I think it's meant to be Hell's Gate.
Very good.
I think
the colour scheme and the demons and stuff like that reminded me very much of the motel issues from the original Sandman with the Corinthian and
where they're all in different rooms with the serial killers.
Yeah, instead of a big giant mouthy monster, there's a big giant eyeball-y monster.
Yeah.
So the colour schemes as well, all the blues and the darks, it was very Sandman.
I think Dan Waters is fully channeling his inner Gaiman and kind of. I think I would not be shocked, and I didn't get a chance to read any interviews with him, but I would not be shocked if he went back through the original Preludes and Nocturnes and kind of took a look at that. He certainly has Neil Gaiman's blessing. Neil
Gaiman, it wouldn't surprise me if he actually comes to your house and blesses you.
Probably not. He seems like a lover. So over a cup of tea.
Watch my masterclass on what is a character.
Yeah. I haven't watched it, have you?
No, it's very expensive.
It's €200?
Yeah.
It's €200.
How do they get Neil Gaiman?
They get everybody.
I know.
Man. They've got, it's Masterclass.
And all we've got is Raid Shadow Legends.
That's a throwback joke to this week's episode of our other podcast, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to go and have a look at that. But anyway, Michael, let's do a bloody issue by issue, quickie, looky, overy, roundy, downy, uppy, whoopy.
Where's the comic?
Where's the comic? Oh, we've left it downstairs.
No, it's here. It's here.
Oh, okay, thank God. I have them written out here, Michael. So let's take a look at
very quickly
and what we're doing here. Issue 1 introduces us to the world, not the bloody prelude issue. We're not doing that.
We're not doing that.
I'm not doing that. It doesn't have any bearing on how good this series is.
It does.
Hush, out here. You've made your point.
Right.
You've made your bloody point.
Issue 1. Where's the devil?
So we're introduced to this bizarre limbo. We know it's Lucifer. We, the reader, know it's Lucifer, but nobody else really knows who it is.
He's got a great big bushy ginger beard.
He's got a great big bushy beard. They're all kind of... I guess they're in the early stages of dementia or Alzheimer's.
Yeah, they're all going
Everyone's
mad.
Quite forgetful. And they're all loosely linked to each other, and they know each other, but they can't seem to get their mind together. It just doesn't seem to be working. They make it very clear from the start that this is going to be a graphic, gory kind of thing.
They put him in a bucket.
Looking at this here, where he takes on the performers, and the performers rip him to shreds. And we later find out that the performers are actually projections from Stingy Jack's lantern.
Yeah.
But we don't find that out until much later. I thought this was a great opening issue. Lots of mystery, lots of suspense, excellent artwork, colour panels. Dave McCaig needs full praise for the colour job that he does here.
Very good colours. I love the character design of the detective guy with the
John
receding
Decker
hairline and the beard.
Yeah,
and
he's just a very washed up detective.
Very
it's very interesting to read. Some excellent work there from Dave McKay on the colouring end of things. But also the gothic style that the Fiumara brothers have is quite impressive. I really enjoy the cat panel there that we see in the next issue.
Where
this,
the
I think,
devil
is an
comes out of
excellent
the cat.
sequence. He comes out of the cat.
Do you think he came out of the cat, or do you think he was the cat?
He was the cat, most certainly, but the way he manifests, rather than transforming in a puff of smoke from cat to thing, he kind of crawls his entire body out of the cat.
Yeah, it's gross.
It's quite horrific.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I think it's excellent. I think it really suits this style of storytelling. So that brings us to issue 2, which is the big Edgar Allan Poe Red Mask of Death issue. And this is where we're introduced to this concept of people not quite understanding who the devil is and them seeing events very differently to how he sees them. According to the devil, all he ever does is offer people the opportunity to damn themselves, and then he waits to see what happens. Whereas they see him as the Prince of Lies and the great deceiver and the one who leads them down the primrose path, so to speak. But it becomes very clear to us over time, and this is a convention that Dan Waters really likes, where one person's version of events is not necessarily the truth. And I think to understand the truth of events, we have to look at both sides. So you can see that very, very clearly in issue number 4. We'll come back to issue number 3 in a second, but because we're talking about that convention, we'll jump straight to issue number 4. We see that one of the weird sisters gives us her version of who Robert is. That's the cousin of Penny, wife of Thing. And she says he was an addict and a thief. And then we hear Robert's version of the story, and he said, I was a warrior of magic. And he sees himself as the great hero of his narrative, whereas the actual sisters who understood all that said, no, he was just a bloody con artist.
Maybe, who knows?
Bloody
Which one is
leech.
true?
Bloody leech.
Truth is probably somewhere in the middle, Ben.
Truth is probably somewhere in the middle, and that's the great crux of all of these stories, I think, is the truth is somewhere in the middle. Sorry, to go back to number 3, William Blake becomes our central character there. He's famous for writing a number of poems, one of them being The Marriage of Heaven and Hell. But it turns out, Michael, according to this continuity,
the devil made him do it.
No, not quite. He wrote a secret book called The Annulment of Heaven and Hell, which was a series of prophecies, where he was telling hell all about what would happen to them, and the devil told him not to make that book because that devil would then be constrained by it. The great crux of the character in this is that the devil doesn't like a constraint. He is a being of sheer will.
Leave him alone.
And more importantly, sheer free will. That's who he is. That's done. Just to come back to issue number 4, that's where the dirty magic is really established. That magic is this dangerous thing that you shouldn't mess with, and if you do go poking your nose in somebody else's magic, oh, buddy,
that's your own problem.
It's not going to go bloody well for you. And yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting things going on there. By issue number 5, we slowly get the unraveling of what's exactly happening. By the end of issue 4, we know that they're in Sycorax's head. We know that they have to escape, and the devil kind of gets his wits about him again and starts to put it all together. And that's where we get the big antagonist reveal, Michael. That delighted me when I read this, and I knew we had to cover it on the podcast. Bloody Stingy Jack, Michael.
Well, Stingy G.
If you want to learn all about Stingy Jack, you can go back to our Halloween episode from last year.
What was it called? You spin your wheels off.
I'm not 100% sure, but you can see it. It has an Irish pumpkin on it. I think it might be our sound special or something like that. I can't remember what we called it. But we tell you all about the story of Stingy Jack, the man who bested the devil and was then forced to roam the earth. Dan Waters does his very own version of researching that myth, and he gives us his very own version in issue number 5, where we see Jack kind of forced to roam the world, trapped between both, and nobody can hear him. The devil has forsaken him. Heaven has forsaken him. I thought that was the Spectre for a second.
I think it might be the Spectre
him from heaven.
It might be a version of a Spectre.
Yeah, and he's forbidden from entering
heaven
both,
or hell,
and so he disappears from both worlds, and then he becomes kind of a strange in-between character that can influence people through whispers.
Yeah, but he's out for revenge.
But he's out for the full revenge. Oh, buddy, he's out for the revenge. He's given an interesting little superpower with his lantern. He can release the strange kind of jacks of the lantern, I suppose. And they're bloody nasty eggs.
Chopping people
up. No good. Sycorax reasserts herself. I think she's a very interesting version of a strong female character. I thought she was really well put together. I found her very enjoyable. Not to say she was attractive, but she was written very well.
And also attractive.
She was drawn very well as well.
Oh, so that's fine.
But a very interesting character as things go along. I think she's a good foil for Lucifer, a strong woman who can stand against him. She's shown to be exceptionally powerful, which is why she can stand toe-to-toe with Lucifer in any form she chooses. And then Jack kind of slowly realizes that he's screwed by the end of that episode. He's like, you remember then, do you?
But he says, if you remember this, Ben, they remember every time.
Yeah, but he takes it away.
He takes it away.
Yeah.
So what he gets screwed over by is your man smashing the skull.
Yeah, it really ruins
he really has bested the devil and Sycorax.
Yeah, in this little eternal loop.
Yeah.
It's his own version of purgatory, I suppose. But it makes for a very interesting read, Michael. we slowly come to realise that it's Sycorax's brain and how that all works. And then towards the end there, Michael, we have probably my favourite thing, where Stingy Jack kind of takes on his own devil persona and uses lies and twists everyone in the skull against him. One of my favourite things, Michael, that we find out in issue number 5, because there is a framing device at work here in this comic book series, where the devil is talking to Caliban about retrieving his mother's soul.
Yeah.
And he comes up with a bloody heist. He makes a team, and all I thought was, Lucifer, you son of a bitch, I'm in.
I'm in.
And that's pretty much what Caliban agrees to. And there's a lot of kind of red herrings. We think that Caliban's done it originally, but we don't realise that it's just a Stingy Jack pulling all the strings.
Stingy Jack
down the back.
Strings.
So at the end, we see all the host of characters, the Robert Johnsons, the William Blakes, going up against the devil in Sycorax's heads, and of course they win. They win. They lep out the skull, and there's a resurrection, Michael.
Stingy Jack.
And that's the big dangerous thing that happens, because only one man gets to pull an El Resurrection, and El Lazarus. That's the big man upstairs.
Although that doesn't make a lot of sense, because it is set in the DC universe.
They need to set the next.
Everyone's always getting resurrected in the DC universe.
They need to rock the next stage of the. They need to rock the next stage of the arc, and it leads to the setup of Lucifer saying, "Oh, he doesn't like it when people parody his works," and so the holy host,
come down with spears.
Done makes his way down with spears. Overall, Michael, I thoroughly enjoyed this little 6-issue run, but I would have to agree with you that the first. It's such a comic book publishing stunt.
Such a misstep.
To include that, but a huge misstep for this. Even if you had just clipped the first little prelude where the devil features, I would have been okay with that.
Get rid of the Harry Potter man, get rid of the Crocodile man, get rid of all those people.
But this was Vertigo, because you remember that when this series was launched, Vertigo was going down the tubes, Michael.
Was it?
Yes, you remember we covered it in one of the things, the end of the great publishing house, Vertigo, and obviously this was their last kind of push to be like, buy our other stuff. Nobody wants to buy.
We've done the Dreaming. Look, the Dreaming. It's back.
Oh, bloody Dreaming! But
just edit the
bloody House of Whispers.
I would take this comic book if I were to give this to someone. I would take a razor blade to it and cut out some pages.
It's a good idea.
And I think you'd have a better comic book.
It's a good idea. I'd say if it's ever reissued, it's ever reprinted, perhaps in a hardcover, you'll probably see that.
Because Ben, I didn't enjoy the first 4 issues.
No, they were awful.
Because
it's too convoluted, Michael.
But they weren't awful now, retrospectively.
Oh, but they were at the time.
Now that I've finished it, I was like, that was brilliant.
Yeah.
But, I very nearly didn't finish it.
It was touch and go there for a few minutes.
It was. I was touching cloth.
Did you have any particular highlighted moments there, Michael, that you really enjoyed from the
I liked the art, Ben. I thought the art was very good. There's a very good panel where, what's the detective's name? I keep forgetting. John Decker, where he's starting to lose himself and he's fleeing in a panic.
Yes, he's going a bit dippy.
And he's gone a bit mad.
He sees your face.
But he's fleeing in a panic, and while he's fleeing, all he has is him and the skull clutched to his chest.
Yes.
That's a great panel. Look at that panel.
It's sheer madness.
The tears running from his eyes.
Very clear gothic madness.
He's gone completely mad. I really liked when we saw, although in retrospect, I liked when we saw Sycorax's physical form for the first time when she was all a
yes, the fisheye lens, bloody
horrible Skullington.
Yes, that was a great kind of throwback to famous covers. Your mother, Sycorax, and then it has the thing. It's very good art, Michael. If I was ever to draw a comic book, Michael, I would like to be somewhat in that style. I quite like that style.
I like the buggly eyes. I like how the devil keeps appearing differently to people. I really enjoy that.
Yes, various manifestations to various folks.
Very good. And I like that it all worked out. That it all made sense in the end, because I really was touch and go there in the first 3 or 4 issues because of that stupid introduction.
It's very well made by the end. It's clear that Dan Waters knows what he's at.
Why is Harry Potter in it?
Knows what he's at.
Why is Harry Potter in it for 4 pages?
Believe it or not, Michael, this character from the Books of Magic is Neil Gaiman's original
I know
thing called the Books of Magic. Yeah. It's for the listeners now because you've introduced the question.
Yeah, okay.
Many people think that Harry Potter was actually maybe a little bit lifted from him because he came out first. I don't know. I never know. I've never read them. Arthur something? Is it Arthur something?
No, I don't think so.
Doesn't matter. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen.
Who's the girl at the food party?
Which one? Sorry. Oh yeah, I never read the rest of the Dreaming, so I don't know, but she's an anomaly.
Yeah.
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this, there are other things you might enjoy. I haven't shut up about it since we started this episode. Go read bloody Neil Gaiman Sandman. Get your teeth into that.
That's very good.
Go back, do the first couple of issues of the original Mike Carey run. Very, very good. Limbo is a decent read. I'm in the middle of Coffin Bound. I can't thoroughly recommend it yet. Limbo is a decent read. But if you like that kind of uppy, downy, dirty, magic-y stuff, Constantine would also not be a bad shout for you. All of these things are pretty decent. If you're into that kind of surrealist or strange magic up and down, take a look at anything by Gabriel and Fabio Moon and Gabriel Ba. Day Tripper is a good kind of look at that kind of thing. Madness slowly creeping in, etc., etc., etc. Any recommendations there for the ladies and gents, Michael?
Nope.
Okay, fair enough. What did you think of this run?
I enjoyed it in the end, but to be honest, at the start there it was touch and go. You're not talking to me.
It's for the listeners.
Yeah. God damn it.
Ladies and gentlemen, what did you think? Were you disappointed it wasn't Tom Ellis? Big bloody British Tom Ellis.
It was he hasn't even got a shirt on.
He hasn't even got a bloody shirt on. Wonderful abs on that man.
Very many abs.
Very many abs. Were you intrigued by it? Were you kind of put off by it?
I was put off by it, yeah.
Did you get into the swing of it?
Yeah, in the end.
Or did it throw you for a loop? Let us know. Get in touch with us on our Instagram, seomrabeag.com, SEOMRA. Oh, no, not seomrabeag.com. Damn it. Get in touch with us on our Instagram at seomrabeag, SEOMRABEAG.
It means tiny room in Irish.
It means tiny room in Irish. Or you can get in touch with us at seomrabeag.com, SEOMRABEAG.com.
Still means tiny room in Irish.
Ladies and gentlemen, we love an L recommendation here at our reading club. If there's a particular comic you think we would enjoy, we've had some great ones in the past, please let us know. But if you haven't got any recommendations and you're looking for one from us, in 2 weeks' time we will be reviewing Lock and Key, Volume 1.
What's it called?
By Joe Hill and something Rodriguez. It's Welcome to Lovecraft. Welcome to Lovecraft. And that's what we'll be taking a look at. It's Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez who do that one, and it's from IDW Publishing. So you can check that one out and get back with us in 2 weeks' time. Thanks a million, ladies and gentlemen. Bye.
Bye.